32. Johannes went first to the village creche. The children were having their lunch, and Johannes whispered to the creche master to pack up the children's things and get them ready to leave the village. "To where?" the creche master asked. "As far away as possible." Next he went to the stables and told the hostlers and the farriers to prepare all the horses. They knew Johannes well and weren't rude, but only nodded and did nothing. He went to the scout hut and the distillery and the book cabin and finally the tavern. The barkeep at the tavern laughed in his face. Johannes slammed his fist down on the bar and addressed the late afternoon drinkers. "The children are not ascended to Devahood as we're told, but slaughtered like cattle." "Piss off," a drunk muttered. Johannes smashed the stool on the bar. "The thing has been explained to me on good authority. We give 3 more children away this evening. That's 3 more children to the grave. I want you to meet me by the old well at 3/4 sun with your children and your things." There was a pause. Someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Johannes took the closing bell from the bar and ran out into the street, ringing it as hard as he could. "Out!" he yelled. "Out! Out! Out!" Many stepped onto their porches and watched Johannes in silence. "We haven't much time, and we need to get away now, for the sake of the children. They'll be dead before next sunup if we don't do something. Pack what you can carry and leave the rest. I'll lead the village to safety." The parents sent their children back inside. Then the parents went back inside. "Are you deaf?" Johannes yelled. He rang the bell louder still and ran about in the suburbs. No one came out of their yurts or paused in their work. He returned to the main square. Chief Eno stood in full military dress with several guards at his side. He said, "Now, what's all this about?" Johannes rang his bell over and over. "We have to leave. Lead the party if you like. I don't care, but we have to leave." "Is that right?" 2 guards came at Johannes from behind. They bound his hands and beat and kicked him until he submitted to arrest. 33. Bedpan water was thrown on Johannes and he woke in the detention hut. Night. His head felt broken and his hands were chained. Chief Eno sat opposite on a stool, his face lit jaggedly in candlelight. He said, "And so the sleeper awakes, in more senses than one." Johannes murmured wordlessly, his head in agony. The chief said, "I had a dream about you and me, Johannes. I was a sheepdog and you were a sheep. You kept straying from the flock, and then I'd come up to your rear and give you a little nip and set you back in line. But one day you strayed too far and confused all the other sheep, and they went running higgledy. And do you know what the farmer did to the sheep then? Cut them right between the eyes for poor behavior. He cut the sheepdog for good measure too." Johannes tried to separate his hands, but the chains were bound very tight. Chief Eno said, "The difference between a hero and a fool is nothing more than the bias of the biographer. And if you get your way, you'll go down in history as neither, since there'll be no village left to remember. I know where the children go." The candle flame faltered, recovered. Chief Eno said, "A deva came to me too, a long, long time ago. She was a wolf and her eyes were purple and bottomless. We fell in love, of course. She fancied herself a savior and told me of the great societies and inventions of my ancestors. She told me what she claimed was the true history of her people and our people. That was all very interesting. He produced a pipe and began packing it slowly. She was killed by her Devon kin for that, and my village received the Luda disease. The whole village went gravewards, including my family. Neither the sheep nor the sheepdog are to fraternize with the shepherds. Johannes murmured, "You told me it was some other man who brought the plague to your village. And you told me you'd keep in line with all the other sheep." Chief Eno took great pains lighting his pipe. The smoke was purple and smelt unmistakably of moksha. With sudden glee in his eyes, the chief said, "Well, there it was, the myriad of man, and so humankind had built itself the mightiest of societies. Death was killed, and ignorance bid good night, left by the back door never to be seen again. Every shackle was removed, and off we went for the stars inside glittering machines. Spacefaring was not the nihilistic fiasco many fearful thinkers had warned of. All was golden." He blew out a fug of purple, spiced smoke, and put his face through the smoke and leered at Johannes. "Those clever folk made themselves into things that were not folk, into things that did not age, that did not sleep, that did not sweat or fail. They outdid their own mythologies. And one day they woke to find in the midst of their play that they had ascended to godly realms of godly capacity. These new gods presented as the animals of old, and could step from one side of the world to the other in no time at all. They dressed as holy men and holy women, and they wielded holy staffs of immoderate fire." The candle burned desperately down towards its wick. "They used that fire. They anointed themselves the kings and queens of everything, and they kept those little germs around, their ancestors, their little native prototypes, if only to remind them how humble were their beginnings. So here we are, destined to toil as simple farmers of the holy flower upon which the god's omnipotence depends." Johannes tried to concentrate on his breathing as Ursula had taught him, yet all he could think of was the pain in his head. Chief Eno said, "Yes, I was the young man who sent hundreds to their graves. When all was done, when the she-wolf was dead and my village along with it, the shepherds themselves came down from on high. They offered me a position as chief with all the moksha I wanted, knowing I would never endanger folk again, knowing I'd never fraternize with the shepherds again." He produced a small pot. He removed the lid and put the pot before Johannes's nose. It smelled like pepper. "They call it contra moksha. I mix it into the water supply. Keeps the high thoughts down low, and the low thoughts lower still." Johannes muttered, "And you tell the village folk the moksha flowers are deadly. Clearly you have a natural aptitude for leadership." Johannes spat on the floor. "You're twisted wrong. What do they give you for all this? A tickle under the chin now and then?" "I get to keep my life. You all get to keep yours. Strength in obedience. A ruler must be wise enough to know his ignorance, and unblinded to blind obedience. Who doesn't have masters? For us it is the gods. For the gods, it is nature. True liberation is through the recognition of one's unopposable oppressors. Children's giggles rang out from beyond the hut. Well now, I see you have imbibed enough moksha of late to wake a little from your slumber. Is it so good, knowing? Is it so much better, seeing? The child longs for the responsibilities of adulthood. The adult, crushed by those responsibilities, longs only to be a child again. He put a hand on Johannes's shoulder. Those you subjected to your little moksha experiments will return to their old selves soon enough. I will personally preside over their re-education. And if you never smell the flowers again and drink your contra moksha, you too can go back to your old mind, to the fields, to lovely sleep and lovely dreams. Or, Chief Eno shrugged, faced with a gammy leg, no man relishes the thought of having it chopped off, yet he knows it is best for the body. This village is a body, and I the doctor, and I do not relish the thought of chopping you off, gammy leg, but it is incumbent upon me to do that which will save the patient. He leaned in close. Will you heal, gammy leg, or turn gangrenous and necessitate the knife? Johannes shook his head. Well then. Without ceremony, Chief Eno emptied the moksha embers from his pipe on Johannes's head and left. Johannes called out for Ursula. She did not come. 34. So it was that Anaximander's search for ultimate truth had become famous across Serdica. He could no longer venture into towns for sustenance without causing a stir. He resigned himself instead, one final time, to the forest. He surrendered his optimism, he surrendered his pessimism, he surrendered his searching for wise men and wise women. What had the theoreticians known of beauty? What had the mystics known of science? He saw suddenly that there was no sense in extremes, intuited there must be some middle way between sterile description of the world and blind celebration of it also, a sturdy ledge of salvation between the pits of piety and the false floorboards of scientism. There, surely, lay the meta-yes, the final, indisputable truth of being to which all other explanations and affirmations were subservient. After searching about in the forest, he located a modest tree and determined he would sit at its base until he either found the meta-yes or died. And if he should die without knowing everything, well, better that than to continue living with the constant blight of knowing nothing. He sat in full lotus and entered into deep contemplation. He listened to his breath for many hours, to the processes beneath his breath, the inflation and deflation of his lungs. He listened to the molecules of air within his lungs, to the atoms within those molecules, to the song of fields and interactions beneath those atoms. Towards evening, a towering mechanical spider approached Anaximander's tree. Down from it climbed Praxia, the finest engineer in the galaxy. "Great Anaximander," she said, "I have heard of your quest to discover the true meaning of the world. I believe you to be a mind of unmatched metaphysical clarity. I should like to offer you a position at the largest matter laboratory in the myriad of man. You may indulge every scientific whim, utilize millions of researchers, build whatever you like. Anaximander said, "Might I construct a machine that could reveal the mechanism of the ultimate eyes?" Praxair replied, "No machine could do that, my lord." Anaximander said, "Then I wish you well." Praxair returned to his spider and was gone. Next, Anaximander listened to his thoughts and the brain architecture they rested upon. He listened to his neurons and the millions of years of biological evolution beneath them. Back into time and time before time, prior to tribes and organisms and primordial ocean vents, prior to worlds and stars, the birth of space and duration from which all things sprang. Towards midnight, a floating craft of solid gold sat down beside Anaximander's tree. Out of it stepped Abachi, the richest merchant in the galaxy. "Great Anaximander," he said, "I have heard of your quest to discover true spiritual wealth. I believe you to be a speaker many would pay good money to listen to. I should like to assist you in becoming the foremost teacher in the myriad of man, by which you will take your place as the richest citizen our empire has ever known." Anaximander said, "Is there a sum of money I might pay reality to reveal the mechanism of the ultimate eyes?" Abachi replied, "No sum could do that, my lord." Anaximander said, "Then I wish you well." Abachi returned to his craft and was gone. Anaximander continued in his contemplation. He had been to the bottom of nature and the top of nature. Now he only sat and listened to the forest about him, allowing each sensation to pass through his mind and leave it. The rustling of the leaves, the creaking of the branches, the unsung, thankless miracle of being. Towards sunrise, a great parade entered Anaximander's clearing, many hundreds of men and women throwing incense and lasers all about. The crowd bowed and fell silent. From the crowd emerged an elephant. The elephant sank to its knees, and down from the elephant hobbled Lord Perun, Anaximander's father. "My son," Lord Perun said, "I have heard of your quest to discover the foundation of the world. I believe you to be wise beyond even the greatest sages in my kingdom. I was wrong to doubt you." He bent to his son on crooked, knocking knees. He said, "I am old and sickly. I am not long for this world. I believe you to have the makings of a great king. The myriad of man shall be yours come my passing." Anaximander said, "And with the full power of the throne of the myriad of man at my disposal, do you think I might command reality to reveal the mechanism of the ultimate eyes?" Lord Perun said, "There was never and will never be a title or office powerful enough to issue that command." Anaximander said, "Then I wish you well." Lord Perun raised a hand to strike his son. Anaximander presented his cheek. The king only bowed his head and crawled back up the elephant. Soon Lord Perun and the royal parade was gone. Free of the temptations of clinging wealth and power, Anaximander's will was pure then. He continued to sit by his tree and contemplate. Day came, night followed, day again, night again. He remembered his life as a helpless child and an arrogant youth. He thought ahead to the many billions of years to come after his death, when he would no longer have any part in the happenings of the universe at all. He grew weak and dehydrated. His breathing became shallow. He turned pale and drew near to death. His body was agony, left in existence only to perceive the subsequent lashes of pain followed by pain. At the apex of the pain, just as he was ready to cry out to reality to show itself, just as he was about to give in to helpless weeping, to beg for insight, to yell, "Give me the answer, damn you, or else I shall die," he instead only withdrew from the desire to know. He surrendered his mind and body completely, perfectly, to reality. He renounced his name, he renounced his intellect. He renounced his lifelong, unspoken conviction that there existed a duality between himself and the world. And, at last, he saw the eyes, the realm of bejeweled order that sat beneath the visible world and above it, the machinations and interactions that had birthed the atoms, that had birthed the elements, that had birthed the compounds, that had birthed his body, and the stars and the galaxies, all of it dancing about in such a way that presented as Anaximander. He opened his eyes. The world had not changed, yet the world was entirely new. It sang of a constant mystery, and nothing was self-evident. Though Anaximander could pin names to these things about him, to green, to sky, to soft, he saw suddenly that they were all just convenient nouns and adjectives to describe a hiding, ever-present unity, the million masks of the perfect eyes. Green was but a wavelength of light. There was no true greenness in the world. Sky was but an absence in which to put things. Soft indicated only a lack of friction, an ease of electromagnetism. He turned his gaze on himself, and, like the beggar who finds he was sat atop gold bars all along, Anaximander saw nature's fingerprints on every millimeter of his thoughts, saw, of course, that he was nature itself. In this way, all dualisms were reconciled, in matter and thought. In this way, the road to truth was laid. In this way, he was awake. 35. Johannes fell between sleep and waking, head throbbing. Through the smudged window of the detention hut he could spy the village folk readying the 3 children for their departure. He desperately searched the hut for anything of use. There on the ground was Chief Eno's discarded moksha ash. Johannes collected the ash in his mouth and swallowed. A ceremonial horn blared. Beyond the window, the village folk had fallen into a congregation, the 3 chosen children positioned at the front. All approached the high grass and waited. Johannes thumped the wall of the detention hut over and over. He smashed the window open with his forehead and pushed his head through the shards and shouted as loudly as he could, "Stop! Death! Stop!" A few folk turned around. A guard jogged over to the detention hut. "What are you doing, idiot?" the guard said. Johannes continued yelling. He felt the moksha fragments burning in his stomach, the fire spreading to his extremities. His high mind began to expand, though it produced no new possibilities, only more outcomes to be fearful of. The horn blew again, and Mriga's effigy of blue fire rose over the crops. "Stop! Stop!" The guard entered the detention hut, drew his sword. Johannes threw a headbutt at the guard and managed to knock him over. Johannes lurched off on a mad sprint, chains flailing, racing for the congregation, the guard trailing close behind. In the distance, two towering devas appeared from the high grass, a shark and a cat. The village folk bowed before them. The moksha tingles were all across Johannes's body now, his high mind sparking, looking for any approach that wasn't madness or violence. "This is murder!" Johannes yelled, closer then. "This is murder! The children will be slaughtered, hung up and slaughtered." The trailing guard got Johannes in a chokehold and dragged him to the ground. Chief Eno bowed to the shark and the cat. "My lords, the madman of the village, I do apologize. He has opted for execution." "What are his crimes?" the cat said. "I have communicated them to Lord Mariga in full, principally inciting rebellion. Please, let us continue with the ceremony." The cat examined Johannes amusedly. "Let the madman talk." "My lord," Chief Eno said. "Let him talk." A pause. Chief Eno nodded. The guard let Johannes go. Johannes caught his breath, met the eyes of the staring village folk. The moksha was peaking and his high mind had stabilized. He said to the Devon cat, "In accordance with the 7th edict, on the punishment and execution of antisocial natives, I request a fair trial." Chief Eno said, "There are no trials for breachers of the peace, Johannes." The cat and the shark conferred in the Devon tongue, laughing to themselves. They looked Johannes over as one might a pet that has learned to perform some trick untypical of its species. The cat said, "If only for the sake of entertainment, a trial you shall have." 36. The cat said with a smile, "The temple of Venerable Lord Mariga nominates Chief Eno as its prosecutor." It revealed glinting jade teeth and peered at Johannes. "The defendant may also appoint a representative." Johannes said, "I choose to represent myself." The cat and the shark giggled. The cat said, "That is not a wise course of action." "I will represent myself." The cat shrugged. "So be it." It conferred with Chief Eno for a moment in whispers, then said, "In opening, the temple of Venerable Lord Mariga charges the native male with 1 count of conspiracy to incite violence and 1 count of conspiracy to sabotage the moksha production process. How does the native male plead?" Johannes murmured, "I deny the charges." The cat said, "Chief Eno, will you recount to the native male and witnesses here present what it was that transpired?" Chief Eno said, "My lord, this afternoon he attempted to disband the entire village, crying foul of the gods, crying foul of the edicts." "Will you also recount what it was you told me you saw on one occasion in the moksha fields?" "That of Johannes in sexual congress with a deva, my lord." Many village folk gasped. The cat said, "You are quite sure this is what you saw?" "I am quite sure." "We shall add 1 count of lewdness to the charges then. Chief Eno, will you remind us what the explicit penalty is for just 1 of these charges if deemed genuine?" "Execution, my lord." Johannes tried to meet the eyes of the village folk. Only those he had taken into the moksha looked back. Chief Eno said, "Does the native deny the charges?" Johannes said, "No, I suppose I don't." More murmurs. The chief said, "Furthermore, the native is aware of the primacy of the 73 holy edicts." Johannes nodded. "And yet he contradicts them in a diabolical fashion, sexual congress with devas being among the most heinous. Does the defense have any further comments before we conclude the proceedings?" Johannes said, "No." The cat said, "Then, in accordance with the canon of morals of the golden—" Johannes called inwardly to his high mind as Ursula had taught him. He entreated it to not only look, but see. There the village folk, their horrified open mouths. There Chief Eno's pocked face and unreadable countenance. There the land and stars. Johannes's high mind began to whisper. He repeated what it said aloud. "I would like to bring a charge against the temple of Venerable Lord Mriga." The cat smirked. "The native male is the defendant. He is in no position to initiate his own trial. Considering what you intend to do to me in a moment, there isn't going to be another chance, I should think." The cat and the shark conferred. Then the cat said playfully, "What is the nature of your accusation?" "The slaughter of infants." More murmurs and gasps. Someone in the crowd threw a rock at Johannes. Many more kicked dirt at him. The cat said, "Let the mad native speak." Johannes said quickly, "I have it on good authority that the children are not ascended to devahood as claimed. Instead, they are slaughtered and served as a delicacy at the temple." "Why?" someone called out. Silence. Johannes had no answer. The cat said neutrally, "Because their flesh accumulates much moksha from their work in the flowers. Once extracted, the concentrated moksha can be used in various experiments far too complicated to explain to you. It is also quite delicious." The crowd stared in disbelief. The cat said, "Chief Eno, what is your response?" Chief Eno collected himself and said, "Johannes, do you believe a man smarter than a mouse?" "Of course." "Would you consider it a crime to eat a mouse?" "No." "And do you consider a deva smarter than a man?" "Probably." "Then how is that hierarchy different? Slaughter of an equal is barbarism. Slaughter of a life inferior is quite natural. Such has it been for thousands of years. We live in hierarchies. Do you deny that?" Johannes waited for the moksha to speak again, and when it spoke, he said, "Is intelligence the only measure of a species' worth?" "No," Chief Eno said. "There are many considerations, sentience, moral virtues, spiritual qualities, and so on. And the devas are superior in all these things. That is a fact. And if a creature possesses less sentience and moral virtue and spiritual qualities, you consider them cattle, no?" The chief said, "What else could they be? Cattle is a relative noun for those creatures below that creature using the noun." Johannes said, "Then why, my lord, don't devas eat their own children?" They are intellectually inferior to adult devas, no? He scanned the crowd. There was anger building on the village folks' faces, though most of it still clearly directed at Johannes. He looked to those he had taken into the moksha, Petur and Didi, old Georgi and the others, and there, on their faces, unmistakably, were frowns of thought. Chief Eno said, "Devan children are still Devan and divine by definition." Johannes said, "That's circular logic, sir." Circular logic. Chief Eno cocked his head. Why, your moksha indulgence has given you weapons of rhetoric you don't even know how to use. Someone called from the crowd, "Isn't moksha poisonous?" Chief Eno said in a clipped mutter, "That's irrelevant." Emboldened then, Johannes said, "What if the devas one day encountered a species with more virtue and intelligence than themselves? Would it be acceptable to treat the devas as cattle? Would it be acceptable to eat devas?" A pause. "Would it?" someone murmured from the crowd. "Time grows short," the cat said. "We will close the proceedings here." "Agreed," Chief Eno said. Johannes stood shakily to his feet. He shouted directly to the crowd, "The worth of an animal isn't conditional on the tricks it can perform. The question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer. If we are animals, fine, but we're animals capable of goodness, capable of sense-making, and most importantly, capable of suffering. And if our masters wish to ignore these qualities simply because our children taste delicious, that is their prerogative. But our masters should acknowledge our prerogative too, and that is to resist." Many were staring at Johannes, not only the moksha-enlightened folks, but the cheesemakers and beer hands, the farriers and clerks. The cat said in a bored voice, "You've had your speech. It was an adequate performance. Proceedings adjourned. The sentence stands as it was." The guard smacked Johannes down on his knees and produced a dagger. Many village folk covered their eyes. "They will take others into the fields," Johannes thought. "When I'm gone, they will take others." He locked eyes with Chief Eno. Chief Eno's face betrayed a hint of the compassion a father might afford his wayward son. Then his face hardened again. He made the gesture of a dagger across the throat. The guard put the tip of his dagger to Johannes's neck. Chief Eno nodded. Ursula stepped out of the air in bear form. She roared loudly enough to pierce the eardrums of many present. She swiped at the guard wielding the dagger, and the guard fell down and put his hands to his eyes, and blood poured through his fingers. She pushed Chief Eno off his feet and swiped at his face and bit off his arm. The crowd exploded into screaming anarchy. A guard threw his sword back to strike Ursula, and she bit off his head. 2 more guards ran for her, swords drawn. She spat the severed head at one, and he went down. She got the other with her claws, ripping a large portion of his face off. She passed a paw over Johannes's chains, and they were broken then. She roared, "We have to marshal everyone. We must get to high ground, now." A band of Mriga's temple guards walked from the air, centaurs, lions, wasps, a menagerie. They circled about Ursula with cords of rope that fell in and out of Vex and Samsara. A centaur came at her with his cord. She parried, stepped through Vex, then produced her own cord, tying it about his throat and squeezing his head off. Another centaur reached for her shoulder. She ran into Vex and reappeared above the centaur, grabbing him in a hug and tearing out his jugular vein with her teeth. The crowd ran shrieking all about, many heading back to their houses, others for the village outskirts. Some were turning on the devas, grabbing their tails, pulling their ears. Johannes caught sight of Chief Eno stumbling for the village boundary, blood falling out of him. A few more steps and he fell to his knees. He reached for some inscrutable thing above, then collapsed and didn't move. The temple devas advanced into the village, more walking out of nothing. Crocodiles, tigers, chimpanzees, squid that swam through the air as though it were water. Ursula roared, "To high ground, now!" Those villagers who had not fled inside their homes only continued running about, screaming. A deva lion bound the village creche with his cord, and with a single pull the roof was gone. A deva tiger made for the stables. A deva squid swam about the village, collecting folk in its tentacles and tying them to a deva crocodile's back. The village erupted into red fire and blue fire. Buildings exploded, collapsed. Blood lined the pavements. Johannes fell to his knees. Ursula put him on her back. "Close your eyes," she shouted. He closed his eyes. He felt a chilling wind on his face, heard screaming, eldritch echoes. When he opened his eyes again, he found the two of them were on a hill overlooking the village, hundreds of meters away now. "I'll come back for you," Ursula said, and vanished into the air. Johannes fell down with the shock of the strange flight and the agony of his head, and slipped into unconsciousness. 37. Johannes came to at sunrise, Ursula standing over him. She was holding a baby. Her fur was covered in blood, and part of her left ear was missing. "The village," Johannes murmured. Ursula shook her head. Over her shoulder shot many golden comets that trailed violet fire. The comets ascended into the sky, and then were gone. 38. In the year of the Red Tesseract, Lord Perun, Anaximander's father, undertook a walk among the palace gardens of Serdica to inspect the fine things growing there. During the walk he suffered a seizure and was recovered by his gods. Many hours later he awoke frail and confused. He reported that in his seizure he had witnessed a vision, a glove. The glove was beautiful, encrusted with rubies and diamonds and sapphires, and it span eternally in the void. A hand began to emerge from the glove, pulling out very slowly so that the glove did not deflate. The hand was perfectly manicured and burning a brilliant white. The index finger pointed directly at Lord Perun. Lord Perun knew two things then. Firstly, the seizure had damaged him greatly, and he would die soon. Secondly, he must talk with his son at once. He sent a battalion of royal guards out into the forests and villages to search for Anaximander. As they searched, Lord Perun's health declined. He struggled to breathe, and his mind was clouded with many strange fancies. Finally, in the darkest minute of Lord Perun's darkest hour, a thin and ragged specimen of a man appeared at his doorway, hair grown to his feet, wearing only a blue potato sack. It took Lord Perun several moments to recognize the beggar as his son. "What has become of you, son?" Lord Perun asked, weeping. Anaximander explained that he had perfected a method of contemplation powerful enough to reveal oneself as mere nature. In the mind realizing it was only universe experiencing universe, the need to conquer and dominate vanished entirely. After spending long enough in this state, One could see down through the murk of consciousness to the bed of the cosmic river. There the ultimate eyes revealed itself. Lord Perun did not understand the notion, but understood at least that Anaximander had found a place of peace, and that much made him happy. "My son," Lord Perun said, "I am soon to die." "I know it," Anaximander said. Lord Perun continued, "I have done my best to keep the myriad of man unified, but the attempt was unsuccessful. Many of the outer worlds have sought the great foundation of things, found nothing, and turned against everything. Many of the inner worlds are stoking a civil war. You are my only child, and so when I die, the responsibility falls to you to take my place as king of the empire, whether you wish it or not. I offered this thing to you once, but you refused. I offer it to you once again, hoping you will not refuse again. Do you believe you are wise enough to rule, my son?" "I am only wise to the infinite scope of my ignorance," Anaximander replied. Lord Perun said, "Then that will be quite sufficient. The palace staff will do as you request. The population will do as you request. Do you accept this thing?" Anaximander's eyes sparkled. His face shone and his robe burned blue. The light of the chamber dimmed so that he appeared the only light in the world. He said silently and with infinite volume, "Mind is only matter that knows it is matter. Matter is only mind that is yet to become mind. If I am to inherit your kingdom, those two facts will inform every decision. There will be no commands or thou shall nots, no armies, no executions. In recognition of these changes, Serdika shall be renamed Bodhi, the ancient word for enlightenment. The principal aim of the species will be to build a single great mirror, which all will look into and see only universe looking back." Lord Perun smiled, the life draining from him. He said, "So be it. Many billions of lives are in your keeping now." He pulled his son close and kissed him on both cheeks. He whispered, "The destiny of the world is on your back. Oh, do not drop it. Oh, do not drop it."